Hi everyone, so I'm going live today. I'm testing going live every week on YouTube and Instagram. So today, because we are headed to the Valentine's Day weekend, I'm going to be decorating a simple fondant design using this red velvet cake, which reminds me, we sell recipes. So if you need a recipe for red velvet, get the Baking with Amari recipe ebook, which has 56 recipes. So since I wasn't too sure I was actually gonna go live, this is why I didn't really tell people. So I know this one's gonna take a while before people show up. So I'm just gonna get started. And if you join me, hit them love bubbles. And yeah, let's hang out as I decorate this red velvet cake. And I will be doing I'll be doing a love heart sort of design. And specifically, I want my love heart to be curved. I don't want it to be like, you know, you'll see as I continue. So I'm just gonna start right now by shaving the edges, right? I'm trying to shave the edges so I can get this sort of rounded corner because I'm looking for a specific design. If you're joining me live, hit them love bubbles on Instagram. I'm also live on YouTube. So if there's anybody on YouTube, feel free to hit them love bubbles. And as I do this, I'm just going to be sharing with you guys about many things, including my latest paid community for anybody who might be interested in it. But of course, as you join me, feel free to ask me questions because, again, today I'm talking about, well, I'm decorating a red velvet cake with fondant. Yeah. So I do have a paid community, and this is something I launched this month. And this month, I am posting. I already have students in there, by the way, who have already signed up. And the month of February, so what I'm going to be doing every month is I will be posting specific topics, right? I'm going to have a topic that is, you know, business and a topic that is either cake decoration or baking. And so for February, I'm starting with cake costing and pricing because it's like the one thing that, most people struggle with. And so half the videos have been posted. But the reason why I love this particular thing is because it is specifically gonna be a subscription service. That means the class actually never ends. So you can join, stay on, and then when you're done learning, if you want, you can exit. I'm even telling people you can join for the 1 month for 30 days, and then you leave if you just wanted to learn about cake costing and pricing. So I just kind of want somewhere where to house all my content because I'm always starting courses, then sometimes I have to take them down or something like that. So this platform is helping me just keep all my content, right? And so this platform, it's actually called school.com. But my paid community is called the Profitable Bakers Lab because I'm only looking for people who, not hobby bakers, but people who are actually, either starting a business or already have a home baking business or a small bakery shop. So if you're interested, you can always check it out. No matter which profile you're on, I'm sure I have some link somewhere where you can just check it out to see how it is. The price of the community is $9 a month, and that's just going to be there just for a little bit. After that, the price is going to go up because every time I post content, I don't take it down, right? So over 6 months, it's going to be a very valuable community, right? Which is the point. And therefore, the price will go up. So the $9 is for anybody who wants to pay, the cheaper price before the price goes up. So basically, I was trying to round off my edges somehow. Yeah, I think I'm good with this. Okay. I actually feel like I kind of want to also trim this as well. Just a little bit. Just so that it's like a rounded, I want like a 3D heart, if that makes sense. That's what I'm going for. So that's what we're doing here. So again, this is like a 7-inch heart cake. It's like 800 to 900 grams. Because I know it's not exactly 1 kg, but it's about a kg of cake. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna put my shavings away. I try my best not to like waste shavings. I'll be making cake pops, cakesicles, all types of things, so that I don't waste these. But sometimes I do. Depends. So now after that, I'm gonna do a crumb coat. And by the way, another topic that I'm sharing in that community is buttercream, right? I'm doing a buttercream session, American buttercream, of course. Because when you're starting with buttercream, you want to start with the easiest one, which is American buttercream. Then, of course, as I continue on in the course, I'll do others. So again, in that community, I'm posting costing and pricing plus buttercream sessions. And then what I'm going to do is each month, I'm going to just have the members either do assignments or I'll give them a challenge like, okay, please decorate a specific sort of, buttercream design. Oh, I need a bowl. So I'm gonna apply some buttercream frosting as my crumb coat. You can also use whipped ganache if that's what you prefer. I was actually gonna do white chocolate ganache, but I did not prepare myself ahead of time. So now we're using this. Okay, here we go. So when I'm using American buttercream, I like making sure I have some hot water because I want it to be smooth. So we put some, because I'm not gonna move this at all, so I'll keep it on here. And half the time, if you're doing a fondant, you can put like some fondant cover, but I don't want to. And so I use some I tend to use like a fancy cake board like this one, which is basically a gold, scalloped board. If you are a Kenyan baker, you can get it from Top Serve Limited, which is where I got it from. Yeah. So apply your crumb coat. Of course, when you're doing this weird designs, like I've just shaved this, it's always fun to like make all these corners. You know what I'm saying? It's always interesting. I'm just gonna keep going around with this. Then I'll put it in the freezer. Usually, like I'll put it in the fridge for a while. But if I'm doing a tutorial, freezer just for a few minutes so it sets. And then after that, we apply our fondant on top of this. And if you don't already know, please hit the love bubbles. If you're on Instagram, just hit some love bubbles. I appreciate it. Just some activity. Like I said, I knew I wouldn't get so many people because I wasn't even sure I was going to go live. But I was able to, so I was like, yay, let me just go. And of course, from next week, hopefully I'll be doing this on Instagram every Thursday and on YouTube as well. And so I'll be telling you guys ahead of time so that you can join me. Because lives are better when there's more people, of course. I'm not sure I put enough frosting down here. I feel it moving, which I don't like. Of course, if you are having this cake go somewhere, like if you are, what's the word, traveling with the cake, you definitely want to put some glucose syrup. But since I am traveling to the fridge with this, we are not putting any glucose syrup in here. I'm trying my best to get this done. And this basically, the reason I'm doing this is this week I wanted to do at least 2 live tutorials that kind of show people ideas you can have for Valentine's. Of course, most of the time your client is going to end up telling you exactly what they want. But sometimes you might get somebody who tells you, surprise me. And you'll be like, oh, I know. I'll do whatever Amari did the other day. One could hope. And so I did a buttercream one, which I posted. Well, I posted the photos on Instagram, but the live is actually on Facebook. And then I wanted to do this fondant one so that, you can have 2 options of what to do. I have a pan that I use, like I have two types of Loveheart pans. So I have this one where that part, the part of the heart is so shallow, you can't tell it's a heart. But I figured it'd be perfect for this design because I'm not looking for many, creases. But it looks odd to me. Things only a baker would notice. If you're a baker watching this, do let me know. Do you decorate with fondant? Or do you not like fondant? Surprisingly, these days, I'm finding more and more bakers are really not into fondant. Not that I blame you, because sometimes it's the clients, right? But my question is, do you guys decorate with fondant? Do you like it, or do you just decorate because clients tell you? Or did you just learn because, you have to, but you really don't like fondant? Hopefully somebody will answer, but if you don't, I will answer myself. Because funny enough, I'm not a big fan of fondant, like myself, right? But of course, because I would get clients who wanted fondant designs, I generally would, do them. But personally, it's not one of those things I like. If I am somewhere where people eating a fondant cake, obviously, I'm going to be those people who peel the fondant out and eat the cake by itself. So yeah, not such a fan. But there's nothing wrong with it, of course. And I do train bakers how to use fondant for those of you who are interested. So basically, I like my shape. Generally, I would have looked for an acetate paper to just kind of deal with this, but I don't want to go searching for it. So I'm just going to smoothen this as much as possible. I am again looking for this very smooth, rounded look. I don't want any sharp edges anywhere. So because of that, I'm trying to just kind of round off everything. And since I'm using American buttercream for my crumb coat, of course, sometimes I do prefer something like the ganache. It tastes better, I think, but this is good too. And so I think I'm going to conclude this in a bit. Then what I'm going to do is prepare my fondant. You have to condition fondant before you use it always. Even if you buy fondant, guys, you've got to condition it so that you can warm it up with your hands by kneading. Make it nice and malleable so that when you're placing it on your cake, it's stretchy, it's not breaking or giving you issues. Okay, good. I like the way the bottom is rounded very much. So, sort of finish on top. All I keep doing is dipping my palette knife in the water. You know, just to get it nice and smooth. Oh, that was nice. This is behaving very nicely. I had to say that. Okay. Alright, so basically this is a crumb coat I'm looking for. I'll show you guys in a few minutes, but I like my crumb coat. Always have a cloth nearby. You know. See how rounded it is? That's kind of what I'm going for. That rounded look. I'm going to put this in the freezer, come back and work on my fondant. Show you that is nice and rounded. Now, because I'm doing red fondant, I actually already have my fondant prepared. I'm going to show you guys. Because it's very difficult to get the really nice red at one go. So usually I do it like a day before. I actually made this fondant yesterday so that when I'm applying it on the cake, it's just going to be perfect. So create some space here and clean up so that I can be able to knead my fondant and use it on the cake. Okay. So if I'm kneading my fondant, what I need is the fondant itself, some icing sugar. You can use a mat if you feel like, if you don't have like a steel table or metal table, you can use it, but I don't think I'll be using it. I think I'll just, So I tend to put mine like in cling film and then I put it in a container. I'm like making sure there's no air affecting it. So I did do a little bit of white, but as you can see, guys, I wanted it nice and red. And so that's why I wanted to make sure I did this before. If you're a Kenyan baker, personally, I used, what is this? I used the red velvet color from my moon. So if you go to TopServe, you can actually purchase this. And the reason I like it is because, red velvet is supposed to have this very deep, very maroonish color. And so that's why I like using that one. So I want to condition this just a bit. I had conditioned it a bit, but I want to make sure it's good before I place it on the cake. And if you didn't know, cling film is not completely airtight, by the way, guys. This is something I discovered like years back. So if you have to use cling film, like if you don't have a Ziploc, sometimes I'll use a Ziploc bag. If you don't have a Ziploc bag, just cling film like twice. I'm using icing sugar and I'm doing this just because, icing sugar sometimes often has lumps that I do not want on my fondant. So yeah. So because for me, this is a metal table, I'm not worried about it. But if you don't have a nice metal table surface, what you can do is make sure that you either get a mat like this, right? Like this is a small one, but you can get a big one, a big fondant mat, and just kind of knead your fondant. And the point is to get it nice and malleable. So I always start with a lot of froth icing sugar, not frosting, icing sugar. But as I continue, I feel it's good. I go reducing the amount of icing sugar over time. And as much as I do not have a recipe book for my fondant, sometimes I do fondant classes. I'll probably do one in March or April. I'll, of course, let you guys know. However, I have a fondant recipe that I posted, I think, like 8 years ago that people still use on my blog. So if you go to amaribakery.com, you can either search, I think I was doing a pictorial. This is like when blogs were the thing. I was doing a pictorial and it was me decorating a teenage, what is it? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles design. And so if you search the word teenage on the site, you will see it. So yeah. So as I'm doing this, the point is to get this nice and soft and malleable to the point where if I pull, right, do you see that? I always tell my students it should have a tail if you break it, and it should take a while, like it should be refusing to break, right? If you have a fondant that's dry or cracking really quickly, that's a red flag. It's a red flag. So I'm gonna need this just a little bit because I can tell it's actually good. Like I said, I had conditioned it a little bit before, so of course it's fine. Yeah, that's my fondant. Of course it's good. Okay, I think I'm good with this. So I'm gonna bring back my cake and we're gonna measure and then we can apply this. Now, since I can tell this is a lot of fondant, of course, as you get used to using fondant, you can tell what's a lot, what's not, like how much you need to use. I'd say that's sort of like a skill you pick up with time. And so I can tell this is quite some fondant. So I'm just gonna use my little scraper to just kind of cut just a little bit off. And every time you're gonna leave fondant, like you want to set it aside or something, always cover it with some cling film or put it back into the Ziploc bag or something like that, so that it doesn't dry out. So if you can see this, it's quite nice and malleable. I'm gonna put this in my cling film, bring the cake so I can place it on the cake. I do like making sure that my surface is nice and flat and clean because I'm gonna be putting some fondant here. So I usually use my bench scraper to scrape any excess. Now throw this away. So I have my cake here, which basically has set, right? And so I want to now place some of the fondant on top of it. I'm gonna take a real quick photo though. Now the tools you need to do this, let me make some space. You need a rolling pin. pizza cutter, something to cut like a pizza wheel. I always like having 2 fondant smoothers. And then what I would tell you is that it is important to have some way to measure the diameter of the surface area of your cake so that you know how wide your fondant should be. So if it's usually like something like a square or a round thing, I will have a kitchen ruler. But if not, I also have a tape measure. And no, this tape measure is not for people. It is specifically for the kitchen. And so this is going to tell me sort of how wide my fondant needs to be, just to give me an idea. So about 11 there, about 12 here. So I always add like an extra like 1 inch or 2 inches or something like that. I'm not making it exact, right? Because again, you want it to cover the whole surface area. Now I'm ready to cover my cake with fondant. So again, at this time, I would say generously. By the way, there's just different types of fondant recipes, right? Let me give you a few lessons as I'm doing this. There's water-based, fat-based, and then there's marshmallow-based. Now, the way your fondant behaves depends on what type of fondant do you have. What I'm doing is putting frosting on both sides so it does not stick. I'm also going to put icing on this, frosting, icing on this, icing sugar so it doesn't stick. So as you roll, you move it so it doesn't stick. The reason why I'm telling you there's different types of fondant recipes is some are stickier than others. Now mine is water-based, so it does not have any fat in it, and it has CMC in it. So CMC, when you use it inside a fondant recipe, it becomes very nice and stretchy, right? And even after, yes, it does harden, but it doesn't harden as much. And then secondly, it is very prone to sticking on your table. And so you want to make sure as you're doing this, it's not really sticking on the table. As you can see, I'm being very careful that it doesn't stick on the table because I'm going to have to start again. Now, every time I roll out, I always roll and check. 13, and we're not there yet. Just kind of want to roll it out, but you still do want to be careful about this. Now you do want this to be like a loosely, like a round thing, but since my shape is a heart, it is difficult to make it a specific shape. So I just kind of like go for like a round square thing. That's what I'm doing right here. I have a square round thing. Also try and make sure that the thickness is even all around. Now again, I'm going to check to see, yep, I feel like 16, 15, 16. Okay, I'm good. So you can always roll it back to itself. Usually I just kind of like roll it this way. And then oftentimes what I'll do is bring my cake closer to the fondant. Everybody's different. This is my method. Let me see. Yes. And so I'm going to bring my fondant over like this. Oh, we have a rip, people. And I can even see where it came from. Let's see if we can adjust here. We shall fix it. I'm going to focus a little bit here. I might actually not need both of these smoothers, but let's see what happens. As I think about this, I don't think I like this particular one. So here we go again, guys. I don't like how that rip looks like. So as fondant does this to me, and the great thing about this is because since it had set, it has no problem. So I can just put it back like this and do it again. Now you do not want to do this too many times, right? Because what happens is as I'm needing more and more icing on there, I'm looking for my spoon. Spoon, where did you go? I do not see you. So if you do this too many times, your fondant will actually start getting um what's the word I'm looking for, guys? What's the word I'm looking for? Stiff. It'll start getting stiff because it's like you're changing the recipe. The more icing sugar you put, the more you're changing the recipe, right? And so you want to really, really be careful with this, but it definitely happens. And what it did is it got caught on a piece of the table or a segment of the table it didn't have frosting. And so instead of do a bad job on it, sometimes I'm like, let me start over. Okay. But I've tested different types of recipe, right? I've tested the fat-based ones, and sometimes I still use it. It's a good one, but I found I like this one because it's flexible, especially for cakes like this one. Is perfect. Um, and it sort of molds over everything so much better, which I think is a good thing. So I prefer this. And let's check. I am good with this. Let's try again, and this time we shall get it right. Okay. I want to make sure you guys can see. I will be showing you guys how I'll get the white out of my cake because that is a lot of icing sugar, yeah? However, for now, and I want to make sure your fondant is wrapping around your cake, but you don't want any of these creases. So I'll first do this before I come and cut. I want to make sure all of it goes round. Then I'll come and cut off the excess. If you have creases, adjust them. So this is the plus side of having a very good recipe. Yeah. So I'll obviously cut a few times, but I start with this first time just to get rid of these excess pieces. You always want to keep these very nicely. So just knead them a little bit and then, put them back into your cling film. So before your fondant dries, you just kind of want to come and smoothen it. The smoothers help you get rid of any air excess that you might have in there. Sometimes air does get trapped. I should have smoothened this one a little bit more, but it's okay. So I'm trying to shape this to make sure it goes in. So I cut again, and this time I'm going to work. And I do have an X-Acto knife somewhere. At some point, I like using small knives like this one or an X-Acto knife. Either one work. I'm just using this to tuck in the fondant inside. And then also, like, I feel like the heart, this is the hardest part, like this. That's usually the hardest part. So I'm trying to make sure it's not, it has a nice complete look. Okay. Shaping up well, shaping up well. I'm still trying to like make sure we can see that it's a heart here. Let's see if I can get a much better. Okay, at least I can say we have our fondant. Yay! That's usually the trickiest part, getting the fondant onto the cake. And you never want to take too long, because if you take long, what happens is that it starts drying out, which is never good. I kind of want to go around and see if I can smoothen this. Get it looking as smooth as possible. Okay, I'm liking the base of my cake. Back here isn't too perfect, but it's good. It's looking good. It's looking good. Hit a love bubble or like bubble, at least if you like my cake over here. So as much as there's a lot of icing sugar here, I'm trying to see if I have my big brush. I usually have a bigger brush somewhere. And I'm just trying to get rid of the extra dust. But at the end, I'm definitely going to be using, what do you call it? Um, Steamer. I'm going to be using a steamer. Yeah, so these brushes, somebody gifted me this, by the way, very nice lady. But yeah, these are great because they kind of get rid of the like a lot of excess. Because as you can see, I used a lot of icing sugar to make sure that my fondant doesn't stick. So of course, as you can see, there's a little less, right? Okay. The way I'm dusting this just reminded me of before COVID, like before everybody was wearing masks. I had an intern who would sneeze. Like every time she would have to put like icing sugar, we usually put icing sugar in a big bucket. She would sneeze so much. So I remember I went and bought masks, right? Because there's people who just have chest problems or like, just issues. And so the point was when she was dealing with um, icing sugar, I'd tell her, listen, just, put a mask on so that you don't have the issue. And because if you deal with icing sugar a lot, you know very well when you put it somewhere, it just kind of goes in there and you're inhaling it. And it's not good to inhale sugar. I actually remember after her, I always used to wear a mask. Like if I'm putting icing sugar somewhere or mixing it up, I'll put a mask on just like to keep my lungs safe. But now when COVID started and everybody was so scared and we didn't know what to do. I remember I had a class at that time, and guess what? I had masks. Why? Because of my intern who, would get these issues. I had all these masks that we kind of used before we, of course, had to go stocking for more masks. So I recall it was so interesting how, and they were so cheap at that time. Like how I bought them was so cheap. So when we went to buy them, because of course now everybody had to have masks, they were so inflated. It was like times 10 of the cost. It was so interesting. So all my leftover fondant, right? I just knead it back together. You always want to knead it because if you put it together when it's like the little bits, it's going to dry up really badly. Now, most of the time I tend to like do this and then I'll put it back into my airtight container, or you can put it in a Ziploc bag. That works as well. And if you can find them. Like you can buy like Naiva sells them. Who else has them? I think, what is their name? House of Leather also sell them. So you can actually find these Ziploc bags very easily these days. So now I want to finish by putting a banner on top of my cake. It's a specific design that I saw that I really loved, and I'm like, I knew I had to do a tutorial for it because it's fondant. So of course it's not very basic level, but it's a very basic fondant um, design. If you just learn how to make fondant, you can actually do this design so easily, right? Because it's not that difficult. So again, let me just show you really quickly my current base. And if you want to make this more prominent, you can get like one of these modeling tool sets. You can use either this one. I do not know the name of this. I have a sugarcraft friend who knows all the names. I think she calls some of them like a smiley tool. But like you can just kind of make it very obvious, right? Like this. I just, since I've waited, it's, kind of started setting. But you can just kind of do something like this to make this nice and set. But I'm okay with this. So now what I want to do is put a banner on top, and then I'm going to write something like I love you, and then I'm going to steam this to have a very nice finish. I'm done with most of these. put them away. This. Using my white, I'm gonna 1 minute just kind of wipe my hands real quick. Because I had red fondant on it, I didn't want to make my white fondant red. So I had also kind of conditioned this a little bit, but I will condition it just a little bit more just to make sure it's good to go. I think we wrap this up. Always double wrap though, just so that you make sure everything's okay. Now, can you use cornstarch? There is some people who use cornstarch. I would tell you don't use cornstarch to condition your fondant. Use cornstarch right before you place the cake on the fondant on the cake. Because what cornstarch does, it doesn't leave so much of a residue. The problem with that is if you are beginner level and you keep adding cornstarch to this, what will happen is it will stiffen, and not in a good way. And so we found that most of the time when that would happen, like for a class or whatever, we'd use. By the second use, you find that you're really, really struggling with it. It becomes hard. When you pull, it doesn't have the tail. Just not a good experience. So just use icing sugar most of the time. I use cornstarch if I'm doing something small, like little flowers or something like that. So since I'm making a banner, I'm going to start with this kind of looking. Okay. And so just because I want to stay, within, I'm going to do something like 10 inches, right? I've measured my cake so that it's not too long. Then since I'm using I still needed this. I'm still going to be careful as I roll it so it doesn't stick. But at least when you have a mat, it doesn't stick so much. But I do want this banner to be quite, I still don't want it to stick though. All right, banner, don't stick. This is what I meant. My very sticky. Let's do this again. Like I told you, I love my recipe, but it's nice and sticky. So if you are not careful, this happens so often. But if you're a baker at this point, you're usually used to these things. So you're like, rinse and repeat. Let me just use a lot of frosting. Icing sugar. Why do I keep calling it frosting? A lot of icing sugar, not frosting. Okay. Good. Long enough, I can tell. Make sure it's not sticking. Good. Now we're gonna cut it. If I want to cut straight, sometimes I'll just use a ruler, just so that it doesn't stick. I mean, just so that it's straight is what I meant. So I have a nice strip here, and I'm gonna make it look like a ribbon. So I'm gonna cut here, and then I'll show you guys. I'm just gonna wanna place it here, but we do need, if you have some vodka, you can use it. If you have some rejuvenator spirit, you can use it. I'm gonna use water to make it stick. So whatever works for you is what you use. I do want this to bend a bit. That's why I'm doing this. Right. So fondant, I'll put my banner. I made sure it looks like a ribbon, right? And as you can see, it's a nice love heart. It's fun. It's a cake. Yes, this is a cake. It's a Valentine cake that I'm making. Okay, so now finally, guys, what I want to do is put I love you on it because I love you very much. And we are doing a Valentine's. Again, if you have these leftovers, make sure you knead them together and you have them wrapped up nicely and put them in a container or cling film, because again, you don't want to waste. And you can use fondant up to 3 months. Just make sure it is airtight, like airtight container, airtight cling film, and it'll be good to go. Now, because my banner is white, I'm going to use the red fondant to write whatever it is that I'm writing, right? And so one of the things I learned so that it doesn't bother me so much is when I'm doing my letter cutters, I can still, this one I definitely use cornstarch. Let me get the letter cutters. I actually have them right here. The cornstarch. Yeah. And so whatever letter cutters you have, like if you have small ones, those are a little bit more difficult, but still, you can use them. And so still on my little mat, I'm going to scoop some of these cornstarch just so that it, again, doesn't stick. This looks like a lot. And if you've ever felt this like texture, it's really nice for basically not sticking. So yeah. I'm going to cut this with, because I don't need so much. I just need a little bit. So you roll it out and then you cut out your letters. So you have to be careful. Don't roll it too thin, but you don't want them so fat either. And then thick. what I was trying to say. I want them so thick. THICC. Okay. Hi, Vivian. Oh, Vivian. Always hanging out with me. I like you. With, there's a comment I'm seeing on YouTube. So when you go live on YouTube, they really, really, really try as much as possible to have you do vertical. I've done horizontal, but I'm always seeing this notification. So that's why I'm doing horizontal, because YouTube's like, it is best to do this horizontal. I'm like, I got it, YouTube. So really YouTube recommendation. That's why I'm doing it that way. Is it that you can't see, unfortunately? So I don't know. Because that's why I'm working on here. Okay, so I'm going to start with my eye. And I hope to God, if it sticks, I swear to God, just, I used all the force in the world, and here we are. I'll do that again. This is not going well. So one of the tips that I usually do is, I like putting cling film on top of this so that when I cut it, it doesn't stick on my thing, as you can see, because you can spend a lifetime here, guys, a lifetime doing this. And then every time I cut these, I'll cut like 2 of them. Like I do 2I, 2L, 2O, like that. L, O, V, here's my V. Give me a V. Oh my God, do I not have a V? Okay, yes I do. Love. E. I feel like a 3rd grader. And then U, because we are literally not writing out the word U. U. We are doing the letter U, if we can find it. Okay, so here is my letters. Let's see if they come out, guys, because I see me doing this again. You know what I'm saying? Oh, good. Okay, so I see. I see. I'm gonna pick them up one by one. I'm gonna use a combination of my X-Acto knife. X-Acto knife here. And sometimes one of the things you can do is, what is the word? You can, I had it. What was I gonna say? You can make, when you're cutting out these things with the cutters, you can actually choose to make your fondant a little stiffer so that you're able to cut it out. So a tip. So you bear with me as I take these out. And some of them might be stuck. So I don't care what anybody says. One of the most tedious work is literally cutting out letters with fondant and then sticking them on there. Especially if you guys, there's this letter cutter I have. It's called Anthony Cutter. Oh my God. It has tested my patience time and time again. I do not like that cutter. And when I first started, when I was doing a lot of the fondant stuff, that is the only cutter I had. And so I remember I would finish, if I ever got an order, I would finish the order before and work on the cutter, because that's going to take longer than the actual design. As you can see here, I swear to God, I'm doing this again. I'm going to take the advice I just told you guys. Sorry, guys, I'm going to cut this again. This I can tell it's gonna frustrate me. So we can do this again. So yeah. And so this is how we discovered with like another one of my instructor to do the cling film because it would take us so long. We would cut, I think, five of the same letter, and only one of them would come out nicely. And so, we're like, you know what? Let's try this tip for the cling film, and it worked. It was so frustrating. My God. And so if you haven't bought letter cutters, guys, buy the thick ones. These tiny ones are. And this is not even a tiny one, but like the Anthony one, those ones are terrible. These are better because they're a bit thicker, right? Yeah. Okay, let's try. I'm gonna start just with one. Oh, another tip, which I don't know why I didn't think about this, is you can use oil. Oil is really good. Let's try that. How could I get that? I'm always teaching people to do that. Oh, what is going on today? I decided just to make a mess. Okay, where are we? Today is that day. All right, let's try again. Here's my eye. Okay. L. That is what I was trying to do earlier. Okay, good. Okay, let's get an O. We have made progress, yay. I want you guys to be able to see. Okay, let's get a V. Get a V going. Can I see? Okay. Imagine if I misspelled love while doing this. That'd be hilarious. Wouldn't it? Oh, wow. This came out so easily. Love. We're getting there. One more letter. One more letter. And we are good to go. I'm not sure about the spacing. And finally, letter U. Oh, thank God you have behaved good. Thought you were gonna let me down. Okay. Now, what I'm gonna do is get rid of all these white stuff, right? Clean up my space. It's so cluttered. And it's not even cluttered, guys. Let me just tell you, it's not. It just looks that way or feels that way. Okay. I actually realized that this is probably, what is it? Mirrored. So you're probably reading other things. But yeah, that is the end of my work. So I'm going to put on my steamer because I want you guys to see how that works. And then that's it, right? That'll be the end of my little demonstration. I've tried mini pancakes before. Yes, I have. I love pancakes. Eat them like 3 times a week, funny enough. I forget that. So this is how we will finish off. And no, this is not for clothes, even though I think originally it is, let's be honest. Bakers just borrowed the concept from those people. So usually we just put it on for a bit. You can hear it. And you can just start using it once you start seeing the steam. I think I'm gonna get a turntable for this. Like I said earlier, if you want, you can cover your board with some, you know, red fondant, but I just didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be a really nice clean look. So take your brush, brush any excess. And I can tell this is about to boil, so I can actually start using it to steam. See how close I am. I think I put too much water in this. Woo! Do not put a lot of water in the steamer, guys, because apparently it pours all the water. Let's hope I don't get electrocuted. This is one of the most chaotic lives I've ever done. All right. Good. Now we have steam instead of water. And so what I'm just going to do is steam around. I hope you guys can see this. It gets nice and shiny and gets rid of any of that stuff that you saw, the dust. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. I'll take photos and I'll post them. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Next time, I will definitely do something different. I was trying out to see how my fondant cake would come out. And I love it. And I specifically love how red it is. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, for those of you who have stuck around, I applaud you, especially on Instagram. I see you, one person. I'll see you next time. And YouTube, thanks for hanging out with me, Vivian. It's always fun. And I'll see you next time. Bye. See how to stop this.